setting the stage for world-changing events. When we were done with the tour, people will ask me about, have you made guitars for anybody famous? And that's fun. That's a nice dinner party conversation, Yeah, we made a guitar for Obama. So in 42 years, we made guitars for most famous people. And that's gratifying in a prideful way. But the thing that's super fulfilling is the guitars that we make can also go with people into the third world for clean water projects, ministry, education. And we use the example of Doctors Without Borders that go into a war zone or a natural disaster and offer free medical aid. And the common story I hear from these people is when they land and they come in dressed as nicely as us, the indigenous population is not ready to run up and hug them because they don't trust their motives. What are you guys here for? But somebody arrives with a guitar to play, their nationality, their religion, their gender, their race, everything disappears, and we have this commonality of music. I think the world of music, because I've seen its effects in different places. And I consider my job a service job. I consider what we do as being of service to not only the players, but anybody that hears the guitar. And I extrapolate that and say anything that you guys do in your day job is also a service. Because what you can deliver to people as far as comfort, satisfaction, I really think our job is to do our best and reveal the divine to each other in what we do. Maybe you're stretching it in your job and you feel that's a little tough, but when you go home and you play your guitar and you record something and you share it with others, there's no end to what you can do.
Just to kind of build on that, I actually had, before I retired, I always had one of my guitars on display in my office. And the reason why I played it, but it was also because of the position I had, sometimes people would feel a little intimidated coming to my office to talk to me.
Oh, yeah.
But they would always come in, and the first thing they would say is, "Oh, you play the guitar." And then we would have a conversation about music.
You're a human.
Around to whatever it is we're going to talk about. It really just eliminated barriers. I found it really incredible.
That's a beautiful illustration of that. And I've seen it a lot happen a lot of ways. And it comes back to my original premise here. When you play the guitar, the beauty comes from harmony. You practice, and you get your chord shapes down to where it's in your DNA. You could do scales and play the chord shapes over and over and over again. What that allows you to do is it allows you to go be a little adventurous, to go off that chord shape and explore a little bit, improvise, if you will, but you always know how to get back home. You can always work within the context, and people listening to you can expect that familiarity of your chord shape when you come back. An artist does the same thing. When an artist combines colors, which are kind of values and weights on a 2D surface, the composition of that, if it's in balance and pleasing, it's really the golden mean, and pleasant to the eye, it gives people a good feeling. There's other analogies with this, but let me tell you what art is you may decide, like what's the guy's name, Thomas Kincaid, the capture of light. He's making you comfortable. Everything's just in the right place, and it's comfortable. Other artists, whether it's music or playing guitar, want to throw things out of balance slightly to put you on edge to one degree to the other and make a statement. And sometimes you look at a 2D painting and it's evocative. It makes emotions come out that maybe you're not after, but that's what the artist wants you to feel. And as guitar players, you can do that in your playing. You can play a atonal thing or a discordant thing, and in the context of what you do, it gets people's attention and it becomes part of that presentation. This is funny when we're talking about sound with words, isn't it? So as guitar builders, you can make a real edgy guitar. So how about Gypsy Jazz and the Selmer Machiavelli? You know, that cranky, there's funny words for it. That Gypsy Jazz guitar, if you thought of it in another context, it would really sound weird. But we like it in that music because it fits. But I'm going to say more in your guitar, don't want to be limited by having this guitar be edgy, brash, whatever, unless you're playing that one style of music. You want a guitar that's more universal, and you have the choice. You know, playing closer to the bridge, changing your string gauges, using a different pick to hit it with. You can add those colors and that discordance if you wish. But why have your guitar make you sound like that? That's pretty out there, huh? Yes, sir.
Are there any things that people ask for as they get older that may make it easier to play the guitar, like maybe slightly arched fretboard? Or, do you see those kind of things making the custom arena?
Yeah.
Are there some certain things that are working for the older set?
Sure, very much so. Here's one. I don't mean this to be silly, but it's a cheap attention-seeking device. when we're beginning to play our guitar at 15, somewhere up through maybe 34, we need a 14-fret guitar with a cutaway because we might shred. We might shred. At 35, you get to the point where, like, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to get up there. I don't need a cutaway for what I'm doing. In fact, 12 frets is plenty for what I do. More on the practical side, as custom builders, we're making neck shapes to accommodate a player, and when you're getting a brand new guitar with the improvements that you may want the standard of that familiar neck that you played for 20, 30, 40 years and duplicate that so you have a commonality. Also, you could have been playing that neck for 30, 40 years and it's starting to hurt. Your hand goes numb or cramps after a while, and there's ways to make that shape more ergonomic. We, as builders, go through trends, and 10 years into my guitar building, there was a trend for smaller and smaller necks, skinnier string spacing, less of a neck. Man, that's cool. That's like a Fender, you know. That's like an electric guitar. We can play really fast with this. So we fast forward, like you said, the aging set. You know, I resemble that remark. Starts to hurt. Anytime you grasp something and you're not doing, the natural. Anytime you're stressing your hand, you're doing potential damage through repetition. And those smaller necks, you can really feel this. A quick anecdote. A woman came in and everybody she talked to said, "Oh, you have small hands. You need a small neck. You know, a little neck, close string spacing to play it." And she'd gotten one. And she also had an old vintage instrument with a 1 7/8 neck and a big clunky neck. And she was going, "I don't get it. This guitar with the small neck that I'm supposed to have, it doesn't feel good. I get tired playing." And the other one is, but it's just me because everybody told me. And we looked at it and I said, "Go ahead and put your hand on the big neck." And she did. And I said, "Where do you feel it stressed?" And she said, "Well, I don't." And I said, "That's the point. When you grab that larger neck, your fingers just fell into a position and you didn't have to stress to do it. When you went to that small neck, she could point out the places she felt the stress on that. And you do that repeatedly and you get cramped, you get numb, and you can do permanent damage for it. So a lot of what we do is accommodating string spacing and neck sizes for people. that do that. It can also be, now this is funny, opinion alert. I think that, when you see somebody going down the street with their radio turned up really loud and they spend a lot of money on the bass presence in there and the car's going kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. That tends to be kind of a younger person's taste, as we get older, we're looking for maybe some more nuance or some sophistication there. Same with the food we eat, where we might have loved to put ketchup on everything when we were kids. Now you're looking for more subtle flavors that are more evocative of something. So in the guitar, when I started building, nobody would play a dreadnought. A dreadnought, nobody would play anything but a dreadnought. The stores were full of dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts are what a grown-up person played. An OM in the 1970s was something maybe, no offense to be present, was something maybe belonged to a retired music teacher, like an old-fashioned something. And today, the smaller body guitars are far outsell the dreadnoughts as people realize they're more evenly balanced, they're more ergonomic, and who needs that bumping volume to get what they want? So yeah, both sound, function and playability, and also cosmetics a lot,
Anything about arching the fretboard?
Yeah.
Are they still
Yeah.
flat or?
Yeah, the steel string guitar has a tradition of arching the fretboard, and that radius can vary. The radius is you hammer a nail in the ground and you tie a string to it, and it can be 13, 14, 15, 16 inches long, and the part of the circle that makes is the radius. And the fingerboard can be done in that. And the idea is when you play, especially if you bar, your finger will fit that shape, and you can slide a note, you can bend a note without interference. And all in all, it helps the facility of you playing. And in the electrics, it can get down to 7 inches and 9 inches. In most steel strings, we're somewhere between 14 and 16 is what we like. And that will change over time. There's a really, beautiful American brand that really got their start making necks that felt great because they were small, little, and they had a really big radius, and people thought it really gave them the ability to really have a hot rod guitar and do great stuff. As time went on, they started developing repetitive stress from grabbing that little neck and that big radius. So we find ergonomically that the 14 to 16 inches is about right. And we also, it's harder to do, but we do this radius progressively. So at the nut, let's say this radius fits your finger, everything's right in the first 2 or 3 positions. But as you go higher up the neck and the strings widen, because you want more room for your right hand to play, so the strings get further apart, if that radius stayed the same as if it was a pipe, and those strings spread out, they get farther from the board, take more tension to press down, which would be unpleasant, and they stretch more and get sharp when you play them. So that radius needs to open up progressively as you move down the board to keep them the same. And it becomes more and more, you become more and more aware of it as you age. And it's not as easy, you're not as flexible.
Got it, thanks.
There are probably simple answers to some of these, but I don't know what they are. That was really good.
Richard, you said there's so many myths about guitar.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one. Maybe you don't feel comfortable commenting on, but Taylor brought out this new bracing.
Yeah.
Is that really a revolution in your opinion, or is that just making a slight improvement? Because the marketing gives you the impression it's a revolution, but
Yeah.
what's your opinion?
Let me give you this caveat. I feel more qualified to answer questions about that than most other makers, simply because I love those guys. We were, like I said, we were kids together. We both started out, in our teens and met each other in our early 20s. And Bob Taylor used to tease me. He'd say, so you're going to make the best guitars in the world. We're going to make the most. Time goes on, and we've stayed in close touch. We've been helpful to each other in what we do. Taylor makes, like I said, $180,000 a year, maybe something like that. And they also have the price targets to hit, and they do an excellent job of it. A lot of integrity, good woods, responsibly harvested woods, well made, good warranty, but they have a price target to hit, and so they can only go so far and control the sound. So Bob and his partner Kurt have a few hundred families to feed, they have a few hundred employees, and they take it deadly seriously. Their business decisions and what they do are always made in mind, is this going to cause us to have to decrease our workforce, and lay some people off? Here's where this comes to. They've got a marketing department and a program that's the envy of most industry. Very creative in their marketing, and they have to constantly get people's attention, and not only to buy a Taylor guitar, but to buy another Taylor guitar, and their positioning is such, and you can't blame them at this volume, is they really want the perception to be that Taylor not only makes the best guitar in the world, but really they kind of invented the guitar, and you can look for the innovations from them constantly going. So I hope I'm not tipping my hand on any judgment here, but the bracing pattern that Andy Powers came up with, Andy's a brilliant luthier, he knows his stuff, it's not haphazard. It's there. He did that for a reason. 2 reasons, 3 reasons. It makes the guitar more durable. The pull of the strings, in a steel string guitar, the strings go through the bridge pin hole, the ball end anchors under the top and pulls straight up. Then it goes across the saddle and pushes straight down, so it's that rocking motion that compresses air that we hear it sound. Even when you're not playing it in its resting position, that's trying to rotate. And it's trying to make you have a neck reset in the future, or make your guitar unplayable from high action. So let's do this. Here's the neck sticking this way and the guitar top. Any brace that we put this way is going to not inhibit that rocking motion. It's going to make the guitar more efficient sound-wise, but it's also going to make it weaker against the pull of the strings. A brace that way, like old bladder brace guitars, you don't see very many of them because they usually drain into the sound hole. Any brace that goes the other direction does the opposite. It really makes the guitar rigid, resistant to that resting pull, and it takes away volume. So now I'm going into opinion land here, and I promised I'd warn you. What Andy came up with was a compromise between the two, which the X-brace is also. So this A-frame bracing gave it more stability, which not only makes the guitar more durable, but it makes it less likely you're going to have to adjust the action when you go from wet to dry. People from the east, you've got everything. In August right now, it's as humid as the tropics, and in the winter, all the moisture's out of the air. It's super dry. And you'd have to change your truss rod adjustment, your action, maybe reset the neck. And all that, what I'm leading to here is it's making all that less likely to happen. Also, remember what we were talking about before. The braces are a compromise between structural integrity to hold the strings and making it flexible enough to be resonant. And so they push the edge more towards stability, a little less for sound. But remember, the steel string guitar is loud enough that marketing will take care of the rest. So the way they presented this is like I said, Taylor in its ongoing brilliance has even made it better and done a bracing pattern like the world has never seen. Go out and get one. In fact, the old guitar you have, that's a great guitar, but this is even better. So you can see where we're going here. People will buy more guitars, they'll have more stability. All in all, it's going to make the overall thing better, let's say. It's really counter to what we're doing and trying to make the most sophisticated sound possible. And our guitars are far from fragile. We have guitars out there with 3 million miles, air miles on them that have held up. However, we're going towards sophistication of sound and counting on you to take reasonable care of your guitar. Taylor sells all over the world, and with that, that was a mouthful. Was that credible? If so, I'll use it again.
It really was. So I'll just maybe a bit of follow-up then, because you talk about care of the guitar, and I happen to live in a place that goes down to 20% humidity in the winter and
Yeah.
70% in the summer.
Yeah.
And so, how do I have to manage my Santa Cruz guitar?
We have a nice page on our website, and I could even go further, but it'll give you the basics on this. So what we do is we build the guitars at 47% relative humidity between about 68 and 75 degrees. The temperature can range, but the relative humidity is always nailed. And what that gives us is an atmosphere that's in the middle of the world, or the known guitar playing world, as far as temperature and humidity, excuse me. And with that, we can send a guitar to Stockholm, Sweden in the winter where there's no moisture, or Singapore anytime where it's super wet, and we only have half of the extreme of that exposure. We can also send a guitar to Stockholm, somebody takes to Singapore, and have half that exposure. We also work with old woods that are super stable, and we take great pains to make sure of that. So now to the assembly of the guitar. Up until about 1995, we made our tops like old Martins. The top was flat. We put flat braces on it. The strings pulled it into a dome, which made it pump air more efficiently. But it was also much more prone to what I was just talking about, draining into the sound hole. The fulcrum action of the neck wants to pull the end of the fingerboard in the sound hole, and the rotation of the bridge wants to push it in there. And over time, that would bring the strings so high, you lower the saddle until you can't, and you need to do a neck reset on it. So somewhere around 1995, we had the answer to a prayer. How do we avoid this expensive thing? Well, we went back and looked at some old guitars, and they were actually, some of them were made in that shape to start with, where the braces were arched. It put the top into a dome before the strings loaded it, and that made the guitar much more stronger without inhibiting the resonance. And since we've done that, I'm getting to the home here. We've had much fewer instances. Usually, somebody leaves the guitar in the trunk of a car that we have to reset a neck. So back to the point on this, humidity we bring moisture into the wood and make it swell. The strings will rise, and the guitar sounds thuddy. The absence of moisture will make the top flatten out and bring the action down and create some buzzing. And at its extreme, it will take enough moisture out of the wood to shrink it. So let's say Dreadnought's fixed at 16 inches on each side. You take enough moisture out, it can lose 10 millimeters or 3/8 of an inch. Something will give. Not the joint that we made, that's stronger than the wood itself, but whatever natural weak link in the wood is going to separate. And nobody has any sense of humor around $5,000 when their guitar cracks. So what do? We do everything we can to preclude that in the choice of wood, the building, and then we try to educate you as the player as much as we can. Keep your guitar, and this is all listed there, within a range of, let's say, 35% relative humidity. It really can't get too humid, but it can get too wet to cause damage. It's the dryness you're worried about. So how do you control that? Keep your guitar in the case in your dry months, and keep a commercial device in there that puts moisture into the air. Most of them are kind of laughable because they don't put enough moisture in there to do it. There's some good ones. The Dario, under the Planet Waves name, makes a humidipack that both lets moisture in and takes it out. Whatever you use, also have a reliable hygrometer that will tell you what the humidity is inside your case. And Radio Shack rest its soul used to sell those pretty cheap. I don't know where you go now, but most of the stuff you buy decorative, like a hygrometer that looks like a ship steering wheel, is probably only plus or minus 15%. Go online. Stuart McDonald Supply House sells one. Taylor is a good brand, and find one that's plus or minus 2 percentage points. And you want to keep your guitar over 35 in the winter, and use something like the D'Addario Humidipack to put in there, and check it with some frequency to make sure you have enough moisture in your device to do that. Unfortunately, you can't hang the guitar on the wall and look at it during that time, but the case, especially our case, is made to be able to retain that, and you'll be okay. You'll really be okay. Any lengthy exposure to the dry climate, and you can get a crack. So what I really want to dispel is our guitars are no more fragile than guitars that were made prior to World War II in that regard. In fact, they're remarkably durable, but they won't withstand super dryness. So yeah, check out that webpage and you get some stuff. A good friend had a store in Philadelphia. Maybe some of you remember Larry Broido, Acoustic Roots in Jenkintown. A great store. And it got so dry in the winter, he had a humidifier. He could put 10 gallons of water in the air. And the shop was probably not much bigger than this. 10 gallons. So what chance do you stand when you put a sponge in a soap dish, and do that? So it's worth it.
I use the humidifier.
Good.
But in the winter, I also put in one of those Oasis.
That's great. That's great. Just watch out for oversaturating in any water being able to drip on your guitar. That can create some trouble. But you're on the right track with that. And not only are we open source with our guitar making, I told somebody earlier, my 2 mentors independently, when I asked them what I could do in trade for their teaching, could I paint their house or mend their fence or whatever, they said, no, just do what we did, just pass it on to others. And so that would include taking care of your guitar, so I'm always available to answer those.
You made the Carback guitar that Neil had.
Yeah.
Could you do that today with NMC?
With what?
Numerical control?
Great question. So you've probably heard enough about computer numerically controlled machines to scare you for guitar making. But computer numerical control is an informational storage and retrieval thing that makes all of our consumer goods today. Anybody has a T-shirt with embroidery on it, that's done. Your dental work. This informational technology can use a laser to cut something. It use a needle to embroider something. A water jet to precisely cut things. In our case, we use it to put in a cutting bit to do dumb work, repetitive stuff. So what we use the CNC for is things that don't require artistry or judgment, but you got to do them, and they're the same every time. So back when we made Neil's guitar, we sent our fingerboards off to Michael Gurian, who cut the slots in them because he had invested in a setup that did this accurately, precision-wise, and it was great. We didn't have to do it. No matter how good you get at hand, you're not going to do better because it's just a mathematical thing, precise sizes so the fret goes in and doesn't fall out. So things like fret slots, it's almost unethical to have somebody do that work by hand. So on Neil's guitar, his fret slots would have been done automatically by Michael back then. We didn't have the CNC at that time. But as we're talking about aging, with inlay work, which I dearly loved, I get done with an elaborate inlay, and I was busting my buttons with satisfaction. Also, I couldn't sleep at night because my wrist burned. And the realization was, for things that don't require artistry, I'm doing the wrong thing by paying people to shorten their career with that. So the things we use CNC for today, fret slots. Neil's guitar has a beautiful inlay pattern up in the corner of the frets, and I cut hundreds of those out by hand. thinking that because I did it, they were better. I was wrong. They're just a decoration. And as long as we do it to pick the shell right and get the compositions and the artistry down, we can do 85% of that automatically. I can go in and do the last 15% by hand, save my risk, get the same results, and save the customer money. So anything that does require judgment and artistry, tuning the top, evaluating the densities of the wood and doing that is still all done by hand. So to answer your question, no. You couldn't make a kit for that on the CNC, have it assembled by somebody, and get the same sonic results of sophistication because you didn't take the time to do that voicing and tuning. But CNC is our friend. There's several of us older that wouldn't be working with our hands anymore if we didn't have that support. So where the factory uses that to gain efficiencies and get the price down, we're ironically using it to protect people's hands so we can do that custom work. Do you believe that? Yeah, come see. It's great. It's good, friends. It's a great tool. We also use the Pluck machine, which is a device that we helped design it in its modern version. It started out to be an automatic way to dress frets and get their geometry correct, but we're a custom shop. We need to monkey with that to get it right for the player. So ours is a video game. Within it is this geometry of the way the string moves, which is never changing. But as a video game, we can bend that or tilt it and get it right for the player. And here again, we're doing something that would have to be done by hand that would hurt you. Now, the luthier can put the same information they do if they're doing it by hand, but it gets done automatically. So just because it's automatically doesn't make it bad. I believe that. Yes, sir.
Sorry to keep asking so many questions. I have a question about artistry. So in the Renaissance, whether you were a violin maker or a painter, you had a school of people that you were training.
Mm-hmm.
And tiny fraction of them went on to become masters in their own right, but most didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at sort of succession in your industry. Do you have future grand masters in your shop that are going to absorb the knowledge that you have and be able to continue and even advance it in the future? How do you see the evolution?
It's one of my pleasures in life, one of my goals, actually. Remember, my my mentors asked me to do that in return for what they did for me. And the people that come into Santa Cruz Guitar Company to work are first taught a specialty and allowed to practice the best of their abilities. When they master that, we hope to amortize the cost of their training, which is considerable. There's only one thing to practice on, and we ruin guitars. So to amortize that cost, somebody has to do that for a reasonable length of time. As opportunity arises and their aptitude and willingness match, people could go into other specialties. And over time, people do have the opportunity. There's no program that directs them towards this, but they do have the opportunity to become master luthiers in all the different disciplines. And they do have the option, of course, to go out on their own and do that. And there's probably seven of them that out there you've heard of that have worked with me over the last 40 years, and some of them are really, really well known, do beautiful work. The ones that are successful have this in common. They probably worked no less than 7 years with me, and they let me know at the very beginning that was their intent. You know, they came in and said a variation of, I'll give you 110% while I'm here. I want to learn everything I can, but I do want to go out and build on my own. And with that, we have the perfect combination. I can give them the opportunity, the training. I know that they're going to go out on their own. And the reward for that is we'll still learn. You know, we'll learn from them what they do. And it also gives Santa Cruz Guitar Company a credibility as luthiers, not just another factory. So I'm all about that. I don't want to stray too far on this, but one of the things that's frustrating today, and I should say challenge, frustration is just an unmet challenge, is some of you are employers, no doubt. Some of you have been at it a long time. And when I grew up, most of my friends had a garage and a dad or a mom or a sibling that taught them what they knew. I remember my Cub Scout den master showing us how to use a chisel when I was a kid. But I was lucky. My father was in let's call him a commercial artist, but he worked in plastic, wood, metal, everything, and had a shop at home. So part of my upbringing was, if you want to make something, you can make it, and do it. And also, we got practice with hand-eye coordination skills and things like that. So when I decided to take my own guitar apart and learn how to make it, it was a pretty natural progression to do it. Today, in our society, instead of making things, we're more information storage and retrieval oriented, and that's what a lot of people grow up with. And we have people that have come to us that have gone to guitar making schools that have great potential, but they don't have the fundamentals. I mean, seriously, centrifugal force, or lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, or you do this happens. And you don't miss your water till your wells run dry. So it's more and more of a challenge to find good candidates for that and find people that can learn and adapt to that. There's less of them that have the fundamentals. So many times I find myself, I'm not just teaching this person how to be a luthier, I'm teaching them how to be a craftsperson, and I'm also teaching them how to work, have a work ethic and a job and so forth. Now, I know this sounds like a whine, and if I kept going, I'd start whining. But that's a really interesting phenomenon today that we're up against in what's going on with lutherie. And we'll probably see the effects of that more amplified as we go on. I really strayed from your question, sorry, but that was a fun thing to talk about. Well, we covered a lot of stuff. I don't know what our time's like here. I'll wrap this up. 5:30? Okay, that's about my target. So I'm going to wrap up what I have to say, which doesn't mean you can't ask me questions in this context or as I hang around here or on the phone later. What one of my jobs is, I started building on my own, and I was in a vacuum, and it was frustrating because I couldn't learn fast enough. I'd read this violin tradition of people controlling the sound of the instrument, but at my pace, I was going to be 30 years old before I started to figure this out, and that just wouldn't do. So I decided that if I work with a team of people, even a couple of others, we could do more, which means we could afford to experiment. As a single builder, I had to get that guitar done and sold just to buy the materials for the next instrument. But as a team, we'd have the chance to do some experiments, get better, accelerate our progress. And the sum is greater than the whole of the parts. Having a few brains together works a lot better than one. So that was the start of Santa Cruz Guitar Company. And fast forward 42 years, that's what we do today. And working as a team. So my job is in training people, doing prototypes, and all these years I haven't learned how to draw a guitar on a computer-aided drawing program. I have to build it, to envision my designs. And I do some traveling to hunt for wood, promote the company, and do things like this. But I've also got the time to honor my promises to my mentors and help other people with guitar building. So if anybody's thinking about building a guitar in the middle of it, I welcome your call. Today, unlike when I had to walk both ways uphill in the snow to get to my workshop, there's tons of information on the internet, lots of demonstrations on processes and lutherie, and there's places that sell tools, materials and videos on how to. And what our best service there is I can help you sort through the nonsense and find the good stuff. So there's also a lot of kits. So if you were thinking you'd love to make a guitar, but you just don't have the tools, a lot of that could be done for you. And you could find out right away whether it's something that you would love or not. But I highly recommend that you meet the best people and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm building a guitar myself from like hand build,
Yeah.
which I had no idea what that meant when I started. So it's now a year and a half into it, and I thought I had it finished for Christmas last year, but
That's right. I don't know the formula, but if we're going to do a special project, like triple the time that you think it'll take, and then double it, and you'll be about right with it, which is really, really good. So anyway, I do a lot of consultation with people on designing the guitar they want, and my goal in this is to make it simple. I long ago got done with trying to feed my pride. Plus, people are not nearly as impressed with what you say as what you do. And helping people get the right fit on this is one of my joys. And we do keep it simple, not dumb, but simple, where you can get the choices to get the right guitar for you. And we guarantee it. Would make no sense if we couldn't achieve what we say. And we all know this folklore has been drummed into us. Don't even think of buying a guitar you haven't played because you want to get a good one. Well, it's not our character that allows us to make good ones. It's our attention to the standing on the shoulders of giants with the masters of the violin tradition that tell us how to go about that. It takes some time. It costs more money. But we know how to nail it, so no reason to go anywhere else. There's my commercial. Well, thanks, you guys. Good job. And any more questions, you're very welcome. But thanks for coming. How many people here are making or thinking about making? That's about the right percentage. Good. Okay, I hope to hear from you. Thank you very much. That was great. Some nice evocative questions. I appreciate it. And even